Logan pleads desperately for a response, but the girl remains unconscious. Kaden just kneels silently on the dirt, trying to process what just happened. He couldn't believe his dream had just become reality. Was this even reality? He looks down at his hands to see if they look normal. Sure enough, he still had 10 fingers, and they were all shaped the same way that they've always been. Speaking of fingers, Logan placed 2 of his on the girl's jugular vein. Ah! He yelps as he quickly yanks his hand back. What? Kaden asks. Does she not have a pulse? No, she has a pulse, Logan replies, wrapping his fingers in his other hand. She's just freezing cold. So is her hand, Kaden whispers. Oh, I think she has hypothermia, Logan remarks. Call 911. There's no cell service out here, Kaden replies. Logan groans. He looks around for a few brief seconds before removing his jacket and wrapping it around the girl. Help me bring her to the car. We gotta find a ranger station or something. I think I saw one on our way up here, Kaden says as he helps Logan situate the girl in his arms. Kaden grabs Logan's telescope, but then he looks up at the starry sky. It looks normal again, but almost as if the North Star is beaming directly down on him. He quietly gulps before running to the car where he helps lay the girl down on the rear seats. She just came out of the freaking sky! Kaden exclaims as he plops down into the passenger seat. He wasn't sure what kind of response his statement would elicit from Logan, but he thought his brother would at least say something. Logan just sat there with a stone face, clutching the steering wheel. Logan? Kaden whispers. Logan finally blinks, shakes his head, and turns to face Kaden. Where'd you see the ranger station again? Fortunately, Kaden's memory proved to be a lot sharper than he remembered it to be. Logan practically floored it the entire way to the ranger station, all the while blasting the heater, hoping to warm up the girl. Logan screeches to a halt, digging the rubber of his car tires into the gravel lot that sat before the log cabin structure that was the ranger station. The brothers rush up to the station's front entrance and pound on the door. As soon as the ranger answers, they quickly explain everything, except for the part about the girl coming out of the sky, and the ranger helps bring her inside. The ranger sits the unconscious girl down in a chair, does a few preliminary checkups, and then calls an ambulance. Thankfully, an ambulance arrives shortly thereafter, and as the EMTs strap the still unconscious girl to a gurney, the foremost of them approaches Kaden and Logan.
Hey, you two,
She says,
how exactly did you find this girl?
We were just stargazing and she... Logan pauses and swallows. She came out of the trees, asking for help, and then she passed out. Kaden looks at Logan, who is keeping solid eye contact with the EMT. His eyes looked soulless and empty though. Kaden just slowly nods his head and turns to look at the EMT as well. The EMT asks them a few more mandatory questions and collects their contact information before thanking them and walking back towards the ambulance. Kaden's eyes drift over to the back of the ambulance where the girl is being tended to by the EMTs. She was clearly safe, but he had an innate desire to keep watch over her. Wait, Kaden says, causing the EMT to turn back toward him. Can we go with her?
Unfortunately,
The EMT answers.
since you are not related to the patient, we can't allow you to ride with us, but don't worry, we'll take her down to Kalispell where she'll be all taken care of.
The EMT shuts the rear doors and enters the cab. Kaden stares as the ambulance drives off into the darkness. The flashing red and blue lights of the ambulance hypnotize him. An incessant beep rings amongst a multitude of others, singing like a choir within the walls of the emergency room. The beeping progressively gets slower and slower, like a wind-up toy losing its momentum. Even though the surrounding curtains were white as snow, the room felt as warm as an early summer morning. Off to the side were 2 nurses speaking to one another in hushed tones.
It's so weird.
One nurse says.
There's absolutely nothing on her. It's like she doesn't exist.
Suddenly, the heart monitor beeps loudly and rapidly. The line on the display is flat. The nurses notice this, so they both rush over to the patient. After realizing they can't do much to help in this situation, the one nurse tells the other, "Go get the doctor! Stat!" Several seconds after the other nurse rushes out of the room, the heart monitor's alarm suddenly stops. and the patient's heart rate appears back to normal. The nurse looks at the monitor, which appears normal again, and then turns back towards the white-haired girl lying unconscious on the hospital bed. The nurse has confusion written all over her face. Shortly thereafter, the other nurse re-enters the space with a lab coat-clad doctor by her side. "Is the patient okay?" the doctor asks after noticing the heart rate readings, which appeared rather slow but otherwise okay.
"I'm not sure,"
the nurse replies as the doctor approaches the patient, placing a stethoscope on her chest. "There doesn't seem to be anything wrong," the doctor says after performing a few checkups. "Just keep an eye on her in that heart monitor. Hopefully it isn't faulty." The doctor and the other nurse eventually leave, but the main nurse lingered for a little longer. After several minutes of not seeing anything suspicious occur, the nurse gets up and heads toward the exit of the space.
"Wait."
A voice pierces the relative silence of the room like boiling water on a block of ice. The nurse turns back towards the sound of the voice, where she sees the patient, her eyes now barely open. The nurse hurries over to the patient's side.
"Yes? Please,"
the patient says, eyes fluttering.
"cool me down."
The nurse responds with a look of confusion, not long before the girl falls unconscious once again. The nurse backs away, checks the patient's temperature, which appears to be completely normal, and out of respect for the patient's wishes, she switches on a nearby fan. Kaden's eyes blow open. He can't stop thinking about last night. All he could think about was that girl. Putting aside the astonishing fact that she was real, he couldn't stop thinking about what she said to him. He felt as if she was in grave danger and, oddly enough, that he had the responsibility to protect her from said danger. He just couldn't shake it. He stays in bed, staring up at the wooden ceiling. He didn't even care anymore about the Pinewood prison that plagued his mind just one day before. The brothers begin their day and prepare to go on a hike. It was rather early in the morning and the sun was shining. It kind of freaked Kaden out with how warm it was this late in December. There seemed to be no chance of anyone up here getting a white Christmas this year. Kaden hoped his hometown wasn't experiencing similar weather patterns since the Christmas time blizzards were one of the few things he liked about the place. They were fun for winter activities and such, but he loved the coziness of it, how it gave him an excuse to stay inside. "So where's this hike gonna be?" Kaden asks Logan, who is outside of his car packing things together. "Hello?" Kaden steps closer and gets a better look at him. Logan's eyes are wide open and he looks like his mind is on another planet. "Yo, are you good?" Kaden asks. Logan blinks and shakes his head slowly. "Yeah, I'm sorry. What did you ask?" "I asked where the hike's gonna be," Kaden says again. "Oh, I don't remember what it's called. It's somewhere around here though." Kaden's lips pucker. Something about Logan's behavior seemed sour to him. So far today, he wasn't acting like the cheerful goody two-shoes he was pretending to be, but he also wasn't acting like the jerk loser Kaden knew him to be. Logan would have at least known exactly where the hiking spot was. It's like the events of the night before screwed him up in the head. However, Kaden didn't blame him. They kinda screwed him up in the head too. At that moment, as he was watching Logan silently head back inside of the cabin, Kaden thought upon possibly sharing what had been occurring to him lately, such as his weird dreams and how they all seemed to be connected to the girl. Before he could decide, however, a black SUV slowly pulled into the driveway behind him. Kaden turned to face the vehicle and noticed the lights on the roof and the insignia on the door. It was a police car. A policeman and a policewoman exit the vehicle with no weapons drawn or anything. Logan comes out of the cabin with a look of surprise on his face. "Are you two Logan and Kaden Boone?" the policeman asks. Kaden and Logan exchange nervous glances. "Yeah?" Logan replies. "What's going on, officers?" "We just wanted to ask you a few questions regarding what happened last night," the policeman answers. For the next several minutes, the policeman interviewed the brothers one by one, while the other would stay outside with the policewoman. As Kaden sat down on the porch, he thought of the questions the policeman asked him. It wasn't like they were intimidating questions, but something about them left him unsettled. Since they all had something to do with the girl, he suspected they were investigating a potential missing persons case. "So, Mr. Boone," the policeman says to Logan as they sit across from one another at the small kitchen table, Tell me how you first came across the girl last night. Well, my brother and I were stargazing and she came out of the forest. The police officer jots down a few notes on a piece of paper. Logan gulps quietly because, at that moment, he realizes that Kaden could have said something completely different in his interview. And you've never seen this girl before in your life? The officer asks. Well, no, Logan responds. The officer writes a few more notes before asking a couple more clarifying questions about the encounter. Did you happen to catch this girl's name before she fell unconscious? The officer asks. No. Interesting, the officer says, folding his arms and staring straight at Logan. So here's the thing, kid. The reason why I'm asking you these questions is because there's no trace of this girl anywhere. She's a ghost, and it appears that you and your brother are the only people who have connections with her. Sounds pretty suspicious, right? Logan nods slowly, utterly shocked at the news. And at the station, we discovered that you have a criminal record, the officer says. Logan's mouth slowly drops open. So, what do you think that tells us, Mr. Boone? The officer asks. For a split second, Logan is speechless. He couldn't believe this was coming back to haunt him. Look, officer, Logan says with a shaky smile. That was nothing but a mild misdemeanor, and I've paid my dues. I'm a law-abiding citizen. And about this girl, I know just as much as you do, maybe even less. While Logan is saying this, the officer furrows his brow. I swear I'm telling the truth, Logan continues. My brother and I are innocent. The officer grumbles. Okay. Thank you for your input. My partner and I will ask around to see if anyone in the park knows anything else. Oh, thank you, officer, Logan says, shaking his hand. After the officers leave, Kaden and Logan remain on the porch, watching them drive away. Kaden can't help but watch the police car, specifically their red and blue siren lights. As he watches, he sees scenes of the girl in a hospital bed flash across his mind. Well, Logan says, I guess we could go on our hike now. As he heads back inside to shut off the lights, Kaden says, Wait! Logan stops in his tracks and turns towards him. Kaden stammers, we need to go to the hospital. What? Why? Logan asks. Are you sick? No, I can't stop seeing her, Kaden replies. Seeing who? The girl! Kaden shouts, turning to face his brother. The girl from last night! She's in my head! Cade, Logan says, grabbing him by the shoulders. You're kind of freaking me out right now. What's going on? Something's wrong, Kaden says. I've been having these weird dreams and she's been in them. I don't understand, Logan says. I saw what happened yesterday, 2 days ago, Kaden says. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Logan just gives him a concerned look. Kaden groans, turns around, and steps away from Logan. I knew you wouldn't give a freaking crap. Just forget I said anything. Wait, Logan says. Just let me get this straight. You've been having dreams about this girl, even before we even saw her, and you want to go to the hospital. Why? Maybe to get some answers? Kaden says. I don't know. Kaden looks off into the forest while Logan stands silently behind him. Logan thinks back on last night and the strangeness of the events that transpired. He wanted answers just as much as Kaden seemed to, but there were those cops. They suspected him and his brother. He feared that by going to see the girl would only make them look more suspicious. However, this clearly meant a lot to Kaden. Perhaps it would be okay. Logan mutters. I guess we could go swing by really quick. Kaden turns his head and Logan sees a little restrained smile creep up on the edge of his mouth. That alone was enough to show Logan that this would be worth it.